And Vinta Nanda joins us tonight on NDTV. Vinta, thank you so much for speaking to us today on what must be a very harrowing 24 hours for you. May I first sort of applaud you for your courage to come out and speak on this. It must have been very, very difficult.
Yes, thank you so much, Nidhi. It was difficult and I think I made it easy for myself by coming out. It was rather difficult to keep it within myself for so many years, and I have to admit that the Me Too movement has been most encouraging. The fact that it's been such a motivator, and also the fact that I've been always working very closely with gender issues, and I was beginning to feel extremely hypocritical not talking about what I had gone through, and yet promoting gender equality issues through mainstream and popular media. So somewhere there was a certain sort of a dissonance, and I think the last 24 hours post my having come out have been the easiest 24 hours of the last 20 years, because what I was carrying on my shoulders was really difficult.
In fact, your post talks about, and it was actually so difficult to read it last night, because it's literally, as I tweeted as well, a gut-wrenching post, and it really makes you cry. And you've talked about not one but two assaults. You, in fact, at your press conference today mentioned that you had written about this back then as well. You didn't keep quiet about it. You did try to convey, what had happened. It seems clearly that back then nobody was really listening to what you had to say, and that clearly the atmosphere today has changed. You've been able to speak out.
Yes, actually it just goes to show the difference between that time and now, because when in 2003 and 4 I really came out, and I not just wrote a whole 2.5 page article in the L'Officiel magazine, and also gave an interview to the Times of India to Urvashi Asher, who was a journalist. Actually everybody read it, because nobody starts their day in the city without reading the Bombay Times. I think there's no woman in the film industry who doesn't read the L'Officiel, but nobody till date came up to me and said that, oh Vinta, we read that article about you, and we feel bad, or can we do anything to help, or like, you're a bitch, why did you say that? Nothing. There was just no reaction. The only difference that happened after those articles came out was that I stopped getting work. I would go knock on people's doors and pitch ideas and keep talking about telling stories, but nobody wanted to buy them from me. But now I just put that post out because I couldn't stop myself from doing it yesterday. I had spoken to my mother the previous day, and I told her I wanted to do it, and she had specifically told me that, listen, don't do it. I don't think we want to go through that whole thing all over again. But yesterday I couldn't stop myself. I just keyed in those words. I did not even read them back. I did not edit anything. I just posted it there, and within 2 hours everything had changed. Each and every person I knew got back to me, and within these 24 hours, I think the tweets as well as the shares on Facebook, the messages I've got, the entire media support that I've got, the entire industry support that I've got, it's just phenomenal,
And you're right. I think it speaks to a lot of, as to how things have changed in all these years. And you have these young women today on social media who began this Me Too movement, and in a sense last week by naming people and coming out with their stories. And it's incredible that you drew strength from that. The same people, as you said, who were not speaking to you the first time around are now, this is now unconscionable. They're reaching out to you.
Exactly. I mean, I'm talking about the very same people who were not ready to talk about it are the very people who are coming forward and saying, and I actually got a message from a very dear friend of mine who never spoke up, actually saying that, we've done you wrong, and we are really sorry for that. So in that sense, it's a huge shift that has taken place in the consciousness itself, and I think it's all for the Me Too movement. It's all for these young girls who are actually a no-nonsense generation, who have decided it's not just about the young girls, it's also about the young boys who are completely supportive to the Me Too movement. I think this is something that has, in effect, taught the older generation a whole lot. And I had my niece, my nephew, you know, young kids coming up to me, just saying that we are so proud of you to have done what you've done, which would not have been the case so many years ago.
Absolutely. And, you know, do you think anything will happen to Alok Nath? I mean, what did you think of his reaction to the whole thing today? The way he sort of responded to it. It was a rather bizarre statement, but do you see him actually facing consequences for this? And I don't mean just legally, because he's obviously going to face consequences very much outside the legal domain now. I mean, he's been named, he's been shamed, and this is going to stick on him forever.
No, for certain, because CINTA, the Cine Artists Association, is taking this up very seriously. In fact, they've called me up this evening and you know, offered their tacit support, and they said that they are going to send him a notice, and so is the Producers Guild of India going to give me an absolute support regarding this. And I'm not the only one in this case. There's you know, it may not be out in the open, but the industry knows a whole lot about what all has happened because of him. So in that sense, yes, I don't think he's going to get away with it. As far as my next step is concerned, I really didn't think about, you know, what I would do next when I wrote this yesterday, but then nor did I think that it's going to blow up and become such a big thing, which is phenomenal and fantastic. I am talking to my legal team, of course. I mean, there is no way out that I can move forward without talking to them. But I think if the industry takes action that it should, it will also be setting a precedent. Because if I could do nothing about this 20 years ago, it was only because I didn't have anywhere to go.
No, and about the industry itself, again...
You know what I mean?
No, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And about the industry itself, when you look at, for instance, when Tanushree Datta spoke up, the initial couple of days, they seem to be pretty shell-shocked. And I think what has been disappointing is that you still haven't heard from the big superstars of the film industry come out, like the Shah Rukhs and the Aamirs, and, you know, really take a strong stand on these issues. Even today, with all the other cases that have come forward, it was good to see Hrithik Roshan, you know, speak up yesterday, and a whole host of other people are now coming forward. But do you think that the industry still sort of lives in a cocoon about these things?
I wouldn't say they live in a cocoon. I would rather say that there is a level of political correctness that they follow. You've seen what's happened in the past when any one of them has crossed the line. I mean, whether it was you know, for films that they had to you know, pay money to get out of the mess that they got into for speaking up. So I would blame the political atmosphere more for the silence that prevails, you know. There is no other reason, because none of these guys in their personal lives would endorse anything like this.
And you know, what advice would you give to young women in the industry today? Because some of them might look at everything that has happened and say, well, Vinita Nanda did speak out when this happened to her, and she paid a price for it and didn't get any work. And yet today she's getting so much support from the same industry and the same people that once turned their backs on her. So what would you say to someone who's facing this in the industry today?
My one and only message to just any young girl, if she is to have the misfortune of facing something like this, is to speak up immediately and keep shouting from the rooftop till somebody hears you, because the conspiracy of silence is far more dangerous than the incident that takes place itself. You know, once they know that you cannot take any action against them and that you have accepted defeat, it's much worse for you than it was before this incident happened.
So you feel it's important to speak out, although it's not easy for everyone to do that.
They should not fall prey to.
Yeah, although it's not easy for everyone who is a victim of abuse. Often for many years, a lot of women don't end up speaking at all, and I actually find it so irritating when people, especially on social media, will say, well, why don't you name the person? Why didn't you speak up before? But people have a choice. You made a choice, and you've really gone whole hog with this today. So Vinita, can I ask you a final question? You said today you're unafraid. You're not scared of anything anymore.
Yes.
I really found that very inspirational. Yes. I mean, you have nothing to lose clearly, and you're going to fight this.
Yes. No, I'm definitely going to fight it, and even regarding what you said earlier, it is not easy. Even I spoke 4 or 5 years after this event happened in my life. So it's not easy for people to talk. But my advice would still be that push yourself and say it. And today is very different to what yesterday was. And as far as I'm concerned, I have to admit, and I have to tell you, Nidhi, I have never been more fearless than I have been since this morning when I woke up. Only just now, a little while ago, someone said, I read your piece and I couldn't sleep all night. And my reaction to them was, I ruined your sleep, but I had the best sleep of my life last night.
Thank you for coming out and saying that, and honestly, it's really wonderful to see your courage and to see you speak out here today. Thank you, Vinita Nanda, and all the best to you in this fight. We're all behind you. Thank you.
Thank you.